Hello, everybody. I'm Sergeant Beast Larson, but just call me Steve. Retired now. As promised, let me try and turn this just a second here. Part of Team Beast here. My support, my beautiful wife. Almost 30-year anniversary here coming up.
Well, really, I'm a mess right now,
But Painting for PTSD, it's a podcast we started 2 months ago trying to reach people and help people. The special guest, he'll be on short. He was home getting his kids settled in, home from work. Corrections work gets complicated. Sometimes, most often, you don't get off on time. Painting for PTSD. If you remember, going back to episode 1, I poured out this paint and said, I've never painted and don't do anything like this. I'm going to try and paint this picture. It's not a number. You just look at it, you go like this, and you paint. Well, I want you to know this week, going through some things, this picture has become this picture just starting off. Got some more work to do down here. Put some more flowers in, a little bit more of the street works and building work, and then up here the banks. Obviously, the bank and some green grass area. Definitely. But this is the first and only picture I've painted in my life, 57 years. I'm proud of it. And painting this, helping with a lot of stress, helping deal with some issues. So let me give you a little bit of a bio. I'm former Air Force, retired police, worked in corrections, done with corrections. As a sergeant, I left down in Georgia, Hayes State Prison. Hayes is a beautiful prison. I say that sarcastically. Also the same place that Scott, when he jumps on here, had worked. He'll be on here shortly. But this podcast, it started off at the beginning, talking about, the introduction, what it is designed to do, to put down a gun and a knife, to put down weapons of my whole life. I've always had dumbbells or weapons in my hand, being a SWAT guy and feeling like I had to always work out or shoot or practice knife fighting stuff. We even wrestled a bunch, didn't we?
Yes, we did.
And she accidentally gave me 2 black eyes in wrestling, some good PPCT. But I started the podcast off with the introduction. Episode 2 was a mission. And a mission is a huge, huge deal. Big part of PTSD as other is acknowledging and admitting to yourself that you do have PTSD. I was 56 years old when I finally realized this. She knew all along that I had PTSD. Then we talked about the signs I missed. And in that, I kind of outlined something I told my son driving one day, who's a teenager. From this point to the county line on Mayhair Road, over to Dixie Highway, down across Frogtown, down 42, so you get to Rice Pike. In that area, in my career, over 100 people died from car wrecks, from murder, from suicide, being hit by a train accidentally, intentionally, being drunk behind the bar, the Richwood Bar and Grill, laying on train tracks, being killed. Over 100 people dead. And it's talk about the signs I miss. You think in that short period of time, that small little area in the county, 100 people dead, that you would not have some problems, dealing with it later? Yes. Then it went on, we did a tree project together, Christmas tree project, which is right over here. And then we talked about finding outlets. And that was very interesting, episode 5, finding outlets, because that was the day my daughter got certified in tattooing eyebrows and lips, permanent tattoo, microblading. And her final exam was giving my wife the permanent brow and lip down at I just slipped my sign. I can't even think of the name of it. Black Label Artistry.
Yeah, that's it.
Down outside of Louisville. And then we talked about how it affects your family. Last week, episode 7, Surviving Knife Attack by Connor Fredericks. He was Lieutenant Cert Commander, went to a call officer needs assistance, went down to help, and got attacked, got stabbed, lung collapse, beat with a lock in the sock. And he talked about that. And he has a background. He comes from the Marine Special Ops, interview interrogation in his background. And he looked at me, had a ball hat on. He looked at me. It's a great interview. You got to look at it from last week, episode 7. And he talked like this. And then when we got to the point and we built up to it, background, we built up to a month ahead of time, a week before this. And the day of the incident, when I said, on that day, you got a radio call, you responded to help another officer. What happened? And when I said that, his eyes and everything was all over the place. And when he got done talking about half an hour later, I said, we both have been to specialized interview interrogation schools. I said, you just gave me about 199 clues or more that you have PTSD by the way your body language and your looking was. And he said, yeah, I know. But it was great. Tonight we're going to talk about substance abuse. And there's a lot of things to say about substance abuse. There's a lot of things to know. That when something bothers you, there's outlets. There's things that you do. Some go smoke a cigarette. Some go outside, shake it off, shake their hands off. Some go outside and maybe have to take a drink of some kind of alcoholic beverage. Some maybe have to go do some kind of drug, not a regular cigarette, not a vape. Some maybe I get mad and go out and do push-ups sometimes. I used to. I don't after back surgery. There's outlets. Some scream. Some want to go get in a car and go drive crazy. Some want to go hurt somebody. Some want to self-harm. And it's very tough. This is a tough subject, tough topic tonight, because there's a lot of things to go do on this hand. On the other hand, there's a lot of things in our life that can contribute or help enhance and blow up issues of PTSD, kind of similar to, they say, don't drink alcohol with certain types of medicine. Well, if you watch certain types of movies, you get really wound up. Like me, for instance, watching Extraction, that kind of movie, John Wick kind of movie. The movies with a lot of guns and shooting and those kind of noise really get things going for me. And I kind of feel like, and I've always told you, oh, we need a good gun movie.
Mm-hmm.
Wrath of Man, The Wrath, Shooter with Mark Wahlberg, those kind of movies. Watch Law and Order. We've watched Law and Order, Chicago PD, that kind of stuff. Watch the live police shows. And it's really different and interesting that I use that as a release. If we get watching a bunch of other movies or Hallmark movies or Full House and kids stuff and grandkids are over watching kids, I get like all of a sudden, honey, I got my fill of this. I need something. I got to hear some gunshots. And if we get really, really mad, we have one movie that's our go-to movie. To Paris with Love. And I'm going to hit a button here. And for some reason, Scott's not able to get on. So I'm looking. If that works. There we go. I hit a few buttons. Let me see if he gets on. Here we go. Screen split. There he is. Scott, how you doing? Man? Welcome.
Not bad. How are you?
I'm good. I'm sitting here with my partner in crime, partner in everything in life. But in this topic of PTSD and everything that I've been through, and I was already police and a SWAT guy. I was already a sniper when I met her, and the police career came before corrections. So she's always known me to be this way. hair like this,
Right.
clothes with the flag, everything. She's known crazy. So, and good, crazy and good. But and this is episode 8 in this series. But I always tell people she has been my go-to person. I'm not a big fan of going to the psychologist for me. I'm not a fan of that. I'm not a fan of going to anger management. I don't like the people that teach anger management. And at Hayes, they actually sent me down some prison way down south for anger management. I ended up teaching the class. Then I went back and I told told the warden, and they got a big kick out of that. Actually, they didn't. They were mad. But that's just life. But welcome, Scott. We're glad to have you. People filter in and out.
Did you know that they mandated it?
To what?
Did you know that they mandated it where even county? They mandated it to where even county prisons right now have to offer some type of counseling and stuff like that for PTSD.
Wow.
I
Yeah.
found that out today when I was asking for permission if I could do this or not.
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
kind of on the. I don't know if I can or not. My supervisor said he didn't care, but the warden never got back with us, so I might
Okay.
be unemployed till Monday.
Well, our goal tonight, I'm just trying to identify some things, some outlets that people have that they deal with immediately. I was just saying when you came on, something bad happens at work, office job, suit and job, Walmart job, prison job, police job. What people do, they walk away. They smoke a cigarette. Some jobs, non-uniform jobs, they may try and smoke a joint, take a drink real quick. I know some corrections people we had at Hayes would run out in their car and take a drink if something stressful happened. Some people scream, some people do push-ups. People react differently to stress. And their immediate reaction is different than their after work reaction and their weekend reaction in the next week.
Right.
48 hours when stuff really settles in, like, hey, I just saw an inmate hanging and he died.
Did it settle into you that fast? It settled into you that fast because it took months. Probably, I was already out of Hayes before it hit me. I didn't have any issues, and then one day it just, all of a sudden, I got like I was overwhelmed. I felt like I was overwhelmed. Like I didn't know what was wrong with me. I thought I was having a mental health crisis at first. Like I thought I was going crazy.
Oh.
I started drinking real bad. I got to drinking real bad.
You got to do
I've
that.
been without a drink for a little over 2 years now, so I'm doing good.
Congratulations.
Good for you. Good for you. And I know we've talked, I've been away now 6 years from Hayes, and we've talked on and on. There's a few people, you're one of them that I still talk with. And I knew that you had got into alcohol trying to figure some things out. And thank you for sharing that with us. And that's kind of why I wanted this topic to have someone to say, hey, I've been down that road, but I'm here now. I never, coming from when I was in the military, and I know you can say this. I'll just say something really quick, and then I'll ask you about your background for people to know. I was in the Air Force 85 to 90, and that's peacetime. That was right. I got out in about 11 months before the war started, or before we started sending troops over to observe and figure out, play dominoes and cards and whatever else they faked on the news. But it was peacetime. The only thing,
No, Ellie.
I mean, I saw stuff when I was in Turkey. I was underneath a guard shack. The Turkish guy was 10 feet above me. He was sleeping. The sergeant walked up to him. Turkish sergeant shot him right over top of my head. Got blood dripping down. It was like a horror movie, like Psycho kind of movie. And I'm like, my face is camouflage. I was doing perimeter check, but I was all camoed up and I was trying to sneak. Well, I snuck really good, snuck right underneath the guy that got shot right over me. But that's never really bothered me, and it should have. But I go through a whole career of things. The police, you go to a murder scene, you go to suicides and the people that find their parents and spouses, and it's procedural because you're trained and you've got manuals and books and okay, here's this. I need sketches, I need photographs, I need this, I need to call people. You never process all this stuff until later. So I've never had the nightmares. I've never had the bad dreams. When I was police, I always dreamt my gun had no bullets in it when I was trying to shoot it. And I had to fight everybody with no bullets. But I could go to lay down and go to sleep in 30 seconds.
No.
And it wasn't a nightmare, it was just a dream.
Oh, he still
But
does that.
what really got to me after police was when her Uncle Andy, who lived down the road, we used to go take him some food. He heart attack and some things. He was an alcoholic. Doctor come in the emergency room and tells him, "Hey, stop all this right now or die. Like stop or die tomorrow." Well, he stopped everything. And then he started talking about the good old gangster days of Covington and Newport. And, Larry Flint and Jimmy Flint, how Larry Flint got shot and why he's in a wheelchair. They own Hustler magazine and,
Yeah.
and all this stuff. And it's like, great. And then he got sick and he got in the hospital. When he passed, we were all with him. They unplugged him, all the family holding hands. And when he passed, I've seen people die in my arms, everything. It was like 20 years of emotion was allowed to come out. And that was the first time in
Yeah.
20 years I had any emotion. So at that point, I feel like I became over emotional, but it really wasn't over emotional. It was just normal. And then I was like, okay, so I had it bottled up and I took the cork out and now I'm going to be emotional. I'm away from police work. I'm doing civilian world. Everything will be okay. Then I get into corrections and I'm right back to everything's turned off. See all this kind of stuff dealing with, 8 hangings in 3 months
Oh my
and,
goodness.
all the stuff that you
So
see and deal with. And then I leave and
is
that still
is
doesn't
that a
bother
normal
me.
thing though? Is it a normal thing to just turn it off? And it doesn't matter if it's your personal life. You even turn off. Look, I lost a person when I wasn't at rock bottom yet, but I was on my way down. I was still
Mhm.
working in corrections, and I lost a person that was closest to me than anybody else in the world. And I wanted to cry so bad I couldn't stand it, but I couldn't. I couldn't let myself break. I couldn't. And I don't know if that was a normal reaction, if other people have that kind of reaction to stuff. And like
A
I
lot
said,
of them
once
do.
one thing finally came out, it all came out, and it
Yeah.
lasted for months before I was able to finally feel like myself again and start looking at myself without just hate again. You know?
Yeah. And then being able to look at family members and look at children differently. You
Yeah.
can see it's all turned off. That is normal. And it's like, hey, this is my wife, and we're lovey and we're affectionate, and my kids, and we're hugging them, and I love them. But the way I feel now, I'm away from all that, and what at spine surgery, I'm disabled in a lot of ways. No more push-ups, working out, none of that. My whole life is just give that up and stop. That's done. So having a
Yeah.
complete different, I'm not allowed to do anything anymore like that, has really softened up the inside and the outside. Yeah, softened up my muscles that they ain't like,
And
they ain't certain muscles anymore.
there's still a
But
beast in there somewhere.
it's then writing my third book about faith in God about 18 months
Yeah,
ago is
that's
when I
another thing that got me.
realized
No.
I got PTSD because things bother me. I'm just not like, it's not screaming, I'm not violent bother me, but it bothers me. And what
Yeah,
bothers me is the unnecessary death and the stupidity
yeah,
of some things that happened that's killed people. That's what bothers
yeah.
me. And then I had the
I
news
could.
that,
Every mistake you ever made, every mistake you made that could have cost somebody something, was played. You, I could have changed. I could have saved it. I could have been. It could have went different if I had done
yeah,
this. Mm, yeah,
yeah.
Why
So
am I asking?
you know.
the news bothers me. I hear things on the news, sounds like a gunshot don't bother me at all. Screaming bothers me. Like on TV, and the doctor comes out and tells them, I'm sorry, we did everything we could. And the woman screams. Sometimes I got to get up and leave the room, or I got tears coming down my face. I've made so many death notifications, I just can't stand it. And I can't stand that scream that I've had happen in my face. It's the little things. And that's when I realized, hey, and I need to open up more to her. But you know what? For about 28 years, she's told me, 28 out of 30 years, she's told me, you got some stuff building up in you that you need to figure out. Well, she knew better, and all the things and the ups and the downs. And, at Hayes, I was a little bit wound up.
A little.
Nah, you was
I
a
was
little
really
more
wound
Stay
up.
laid
with
back guy.
him. Oh.
I left in 2019, and that was due to corruption stuff. People know this. I've talked about it. I think you got
Yeah.
there maybe in 18.
I got there a little bit before, I think 2017. If I'm not
17. Because
Yeah.
I know I got to see you a little bit. We never worked same shift
Yeah.
and never were really close, but
I used to watch them.
everybody.
You'd walk
Oh,
in and you growl at them, and the flaps would just start closing in tier two. They wasn't playing with. They wasn't
and
playing
and
with you in there.
and the thing.
Sounds
He's
about
crazy.
right.
I used to hear that so much. He's crazy.
Yeah, my word. And I can tell you, I can't upload the picture on here. I don't know how to do that, but I met with the merchandiser early this week, and he's building an online store for me. It's going to have a shirt. It's got the American flag colors, but it says "The Beast," Sergeant Larson, and also it's going to have the round circle, and it says "Painting for PTSD." Sergeant
That's
Steve Beast
awesome.
Larson.
Put me down. I definitely want one of those. I probably
So
know
I'll
some
let you
people.
know when
Yeah.
that gets out. It'll be available in a ball cap, and it's kind of I guess I can say it this way: if you want word to get around in prison, you start the rumor yourself. Like I started the rumor, I was going to be the CERT commander when that lieutenant guy Scott, whatever his name was, I don't know, he was chubby and he went to class and they kicked him out and they couldn't pass the CERT class.
Remember
I
that.
can't think of his name, Lieutenant. He's a good heart,
McGee.
but anyhow, whatever his name is. But I told, and the warden came up and asked me one day, and we was out doing chows in front of D2, D1, D2, and hey, did you say something about you? I said, hell yeah, warden. I said, you want something accurate? You start it. I said, I started that rumor last week and took this long to get to you. He said, no, it got to me last week. I just been waiting to talk to you. I said, okay. So what are you going to do about it now? You need a CERT commander that has passed the test, that is conditioned, that can do PT, that has a background. And I'd been on
And
2
those
SWAT teams
tactical.
prior to this.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, I don't think that's going to happen. I said, all you got to do is just say so. Send a dude back to shift. He's a great shift leader. He's a terrible CERT commander. Well, I lost that argument. But so if you start a rumor, then you get things to happen. So I'm trying to start like a movement,
Well,
I guess, of the beast.
that's really
Because,
what ruined my career. That one, the rumor thing, ruined me.
yeah.
From the day I started, I was a dirty officer because
What?
I'd done HVAC work before I came there, and I had a little bit of money. I had jewelry. I had some nice things, and I messed up and wore some to a training thing one time, and that started it all off. So after that, I just rode with it. I wish I would have confronted it more, but instead I was like, you know what? I'm going to wear 2 chains this time. I'm
And
going to
just
wear a suit this time when we go to training, and I get tased. I'm gonna get tased in a suit. You know, I thought it was funny, but it ended up it would never go away. It just followed me the whole time. I can't tell you how many times I
yeah.
had inside people tell me, "You're being investigated." I'm like, I don't care. But if you're not doing anything to worry about, you don't have nothing to worry about.
That's right.
But at the same time, I didn't have any backup nowhere, and I was working as a sergeant over tier 2. The only guys I had back there was my tier 2 crew, and then I had tier 1, and that was working under somebody that I was afraid would throw me under the bus first chance they got, and
Huh.
I had to do things on my own, so I had to do it my own way, and it made me look shady a couple of times, But as far as making extra money in the prison, that was so offensive to me because I was so proud when I became an officer there because I didn't think I could. I went to interview at Walker, and they wouldn't hire me because I'd been arrested too many times, and I left there with a job at Hayes, and then when I made sergeant, man, I still go by sergeant. The prison I'm at now is a more it's probably been more therapeutic to me than anything else because I'm seeing that all inmates aren't like the ones we dealt with. I've got guys that I take out, teach them how to pour concrete, teach them how to build things, teach them how to, and you got some guys in there that messed up that really want to learn and actually may have a future when they get out. I've met some decent people there. There's still some scumbags, and I try to get rid of them as fast as I can. But for the most part, there's some decent people out there, and I needed that because
What was that?
before that,
Right.
there was 2 types of people.
Yep, that's right.
Yeah, Yeah.
My light fell off
Can
off
y'all
of
hear me
taking it.
okay?
Yeah, I can hear you
I know
good.
that I
This
couldn't
is
stay at my house. I had to drive down the road because my kids are like
Well,
really into video games and they were
yep.
being too loud. So I was like, I'll be right back. I could hear them outside. So that's what made me late is I had to drive down the road where I couldn't hear them anymore. I'm parked at the end of my little property line now.
yeah, that's all right.
Oh.
When the podcast began, and I introduced it in the very first episode, and I told people why, putting down weapons and doing painting crafts, doing something creative, different. I wanted to do something I've never done. I'm 57 years old. And I opened this box. It comes with paintbrushes and paint and the canvas. It's not a paint by number. It's just look at the picture and do it. Never painted in my
Yeah.
life. And I talked, and I've been through 3 episodes. I did unwrap the plastic, but I hadn't touched it. Well, this week I did do some painting of it. And of course, you always have to do some things different. It's not done, but I
Hey,
actually,
it's not bad though.
it's
He
a,
is so proud of that picture.
I would be too. I would be showing that. Look, I've never painted anything either since I was probably in elementary school.
Oh
So,
my
and it was
goodness,
bad
you
then. I
guys.
can't imagine what it would look like now.
but
It
it
was bad
was,
then.
she was working on some craft projects for grandkids, and I just spent 4 or 5 hours the other night just like, hey, I'm gonna paint and I'm gonna do this, and I just did it my way. Ask her a few questions. But is is there anything that you can tell us about your background? You've talked about being in corrections. We've talked about that right off the bat, and working in a
Yeah.
prison, and that somebody that was very close to you because of alcohol and things, that you lost that person from your life. Is there
Yeah.
anything that you can talk about so people would kind of understand how your life built up to that?
Like, what do you mean?
Okay.
Like I was, I told you I was in the military. And,
I
military.
I I
I
have
know some
been.
things about you, but I don't want to say it.
There's some things that I don't know if my confidentiality clause has expired yet. So
It's
I
not.
sent a couple of messages out. Hopefully you'll have me back on this so we can talk
Yes.
again because
Absolutely.
I have to wait for some feedback on that before I can really talk about anything.
You've been
I didn't go
overseas.
during it. It wasn't peacetime when I left. It was just now. Bush was. Yeah, I graduated in 2006, so it was getting ugly when I got out of school and was thinking I was a tough guy, bulletproof and all that. So
Yeah. But
mistakes
anybody that's
happen.
been overseas, like you have, I was over in Turkey in peacetime, and it really wasn't. In 1988, when I was in Turkey, Saddam Hussein used mustard gas
Oh
and
yeah,
killed everybody in the village 40 miles
it's
away.
Really?
it's
This
crazy
was
how peacetime
1988.
there is.
Oh.
Yeah, it's crazy the way peacetime is over there. The people of the United States have no idea how lucky they are, and
Yeah.
they take advantage of it. If they had to live in the conditions of these other people, like, look, I'm a big advocate for immigration. I feel so bad for the people that were thrown out of the country, and I know that people were taking our jobs and stuff like that. Somebody can't take my job, okay? I feel like if you can come over here without any kind of form of identification, no skill, no, you can't speak English, and you can take my job, there's something wrong with my skill set. And that's kind of my fault if you can take my job. If they had more of an ability to, or if they knew that it was legal to get a tax ID so they could pay taxes, it would be a different story. A lot of them think that they can't pay taxes because they're illegal. They can. They just have to obtain a tax ID, which is just as simple as filling out forms on online, and you'll legally pay taxes, which actually makes it look like you have good moral character. So if you ever do try to apply for citizenship, you don't have to ask for forgiveness for living here so long without paying any taxes. Uh,
Huh.
the women and children that are getting thrown out of here are here because they're seeking asylum. A lot of them aren't here to sell drugs. The places they're cracking down on so far are heavy cartel areas and stuff like that, where they're not really here to try to better themselves and better their life. They're carrying their old life here and making it the same thing. So I get that. But the ones that are, trying to start new and have fled a place where they're not safe. They're not safe. One of the most hostile places in the world is bordering our country.
See, that's
And
what I was
we're
telling
making people
Steve.
we're making people go back there without, and we allow the media to propagate it being because of reasons it's really not. It's really not. And if you really want to be historical about it, they was here first. We ran them out of here there. So this is really their land. It's more their land than it is any of us white folks.
Oh wow.
That's why they're dark, because they were Indians, and we marched them down that way.
Huh.
And now they're there, and we won't let them back in. It's insane. It's insane.
Oh.
I think that it should be a one world, or that our ancestors didn't finish the job when they didn't take Canada and Mexico and make it one big giant place instead of having them border us like this.
Yeah.
There's got to be a way that we can make it work. I
don't have the answer.
I feel
met
terrible
Tom.
for the women and the children.
Yeah, I met Tom Homan, actually working for a governor candidate as his head of security and bodyguard. One of the speeches, Tom Homan, who's now the Homeland Security Director, again, he was when Trump was in the last time, Trump 45.
Yeah.
And he gave a speech. He talked about what he saw in the back of that tractor trailer, the 29 people. He cried when he talked to us in that speech. I was his bodyguard for the night, got a picture with him. Really incredible. But I've never walked in his shoes, and I've never burped and been down there. There's a couple things to this tonight. I just want to throw a couple paragraphs in and out. Tell me if some of this is words from song. I saw something today. It said, we can't always choose the music life plays for us, but we can choose how we dance to it.
Absolutely.
People are going through. We've got some close family members. We've lost her cousin Nathaniel almost 3 years ago now. He had some substance abuse issues, which led to some kidney failure.
Well, he had polycystic kidney disease.
Yeah, and he had that. I can't say that word. Polycystic kidney disease. After his short incarceration for theft to pay for the drugs, he was clean. He was happy. He was not drinking either. And we got a couple great years with him.
And actually what killed him is they didn't take out his whole kidney. They only took out half.
Yeah.
Which was
did
horrible.
It go septic or something?
Yeah.
It ended up getting infected and going septic.
Oh, where's this button go here?
It just makes me so angry.
I'm trying to see, not this one, this one. You've heard this expression before. I am not okay. I'm barely getting by. I'm losing track of days and losing sleep at night. Does that kind of sound familiar?
Jelly roll.
Yeah, you know that right off.
Hey, look, I was listening to Jelly Roll before anybody.
Me and my daughter went to his concert.
When he was a country rapper, which a lot of people don't know, he was a crazy white boy rapper. I was listening to him back then.
Oh my goodness, that's
Welcome
too
to
funny.
the trap house.
That is so funny.
I woke up today. I almost stayed in bed. Had the devil on my back and voices in my head. Some days it ain't all bad. Some days it all gets worse. Some days I swear I'm better off laying in the dirt. People have a lot of different feelings, different emotion. And I just lost this other song.
Oh no.
A lot of those that'll listen to this podcast and they'll get to it later, and it gets shared, a lot of hashtags for mental health awareness groups like this. There's a Project Blue that I send it to. Blue Hero Project started up in the Washington State, Oregon area up northwest, and they're really big into law enforcement type of situations. There's been 3 police correction officers that's committed suicide in the last 3 weeks, and
I
it
don't doubt
just
it.
doesn't stop. And I don't have an answer. I don't have an answer. You know, I'm all over. I'm
I
on.
don't. It's I don't know what it is about corrections that gives us that overwhelming feeling like we need to take ourselves out either. I don't know if it's the violence you become accustomed to, or if it's the change you have mentally to your everyday life. When you get away from all that violence, you realize that you love people more than the average person because you love so much more than you did before.
Yeah,
Like the people that you care about, and you're not going to let anything happen to them. And if you're battle tested, you know you'll die to protect them. And then, but before you get to that point, you don't know how you feel about them. You don't,
yeah,
because you're able to see some of the most despicable things that most people will never see in their life. You can deal with on a daily basis,
yeah,
and it not affect you. You go home and go right to bed. You go home, take a shower. You're back there tomorrow, laughing and smiling. You know, that's something that I deal with still. I smile a lot, which
yeah,
is which I know myself is an indication that the people who smile the most aren't the happy people, right? Ain't that what everybody always says? Those are the ones the ones that look so happy. And I get told I aggravate people in the mornings when I show up late to work because
Oh
I'm there and
no.
I'm smiling, I'm happy, and they're like drinking their coffee, like, what are you so happy about? And I'm like, life is great, but in my head, I'm like, I'm not.
yeah,
I'm not happy, but I do the best I can. And
yeah,
my kids are they're so perfect. God knew what He was doing when He gave me those two boys. Because
yeah.
had it not been for them, or if they would be a little bit different, then I don't know. I don't know. My youngest son, or my oldest son, I mean, he's like a 35-year-old as far as wise man goes, stuck in a little kid's body.
Stop it.
He says stuff to me sometimes that it's like dad. He's giving me advice like he's my dad. You know.
Oh
And,
my
and one
goodness.
example, when I was drinking and went through a really bad heartbreak, got my heart broke and all that sissy stuff, right? Um, I said, well, what am I supposed to do now? And he says, you move on and you forget they ever existed. And then that was coming from like a 9-year-old at the time.
Oh my goodness.
He's not supposed to think like that, but he did. He's like, we move on and we act like they never existed. And that's
That's right.
exactly what we done. And he was absolutely right. He said it one day. He said, all we need is us three. He was talking about me, him, and his brother. Like that's as long as we're having all three of us, we're fine. We don't have to worry about nothing.
Oh.
And I didn't believe him. I did, and I made him repeat it all the time. I know it's like their little catchphrase we say to each other sometimes. But it's really true. It's really true. It's really true. That's
Yeah.
just all we really need.
She has a nerve disease and she puts on a smile. She puts on a face to hide pain and hide things. So that face is it's a barrier that a lot of people don't realize. Like you said, I started police in 91 and we were taught, suck it up, rub some dirt in it kind of a thing. Hey, you see this, the ego, the tough guy, it's going to never bother you, let it go. And when I advertised last week, the video about Connor being stabbed, there's a guy and he's 20 years in law enforcement. He was a Marine and he
You talking about
commented,
Lieutenant Connor, Captain Connor, Captain
no,
Connor?
Connor Fredericks.
Okay,
He's over in the Carolinas.
okay.
He was,
They're having a hard
I'm
time in corrections over there. Like they're having a real hard time right now.
yeah, but we were talking, I think I just lost my train of thought. That happens when you get older.
You need to take some Alpha Brain.
Yeah.
If you've ever
Well,
heard of it, you need to order some and take it. I'm telling you, you'll feel like you are on top of your game all the time. You won't have that. There won't
What
be
is
that
it?
cloudiness no more. It's called
uh,
Alpha Brain. If y'all know
Alpha
who,
Brain.
it's made by On It and Joe Rogan, the spokesperson for the UFC. He does the Joe Rogan
Yeah,
Experience
yeah, I know what you're
podcast.
talking about.
He
We
promotes
like
it a
Joe.
lot, and it's all natural. you don't really feel anything else of it. You just feel smart. Like you just feel like focused
Fresh
and
and alert.
smart. Oh yeah, yeah. Like
Well, I did feel fresh and alert till about a year ago, but tomorrow I have to retest. They think there's a leak of spinal fluid, and that's what's causing my head and my brain to do this. Like I'll get
oh
where I get like my brain is in real time and my body slows down. I'm in first gear, then I'm like 2 miles an hour, and then I'm in park. And I fall down, hit my head on the stairs. I fall, things happen, or I start slurring words. And it's crazy. But if they don't find a leak tomorrow in my spinal column, then they're talking about some intracranial right back here biopsy of stuff because the layer around my brain is too thick, which is not allowing things to work properly. So it's anyhow. But what I was going to say, this guy, he made a comment, and he's just about just let it go. You don't let things bother you, ignore it. And I said something, and just toss out to sea or something. And I said, okay, well, when your life jacket gets a hole in it and you're calling for somebody, I'll be here. Kind of one of those comments. And then he said something, and he's like, well, I meant something like this. So I messaged him directly, and we had a good conversation. It wasn't bad at all. And he had actually 3 days before he saw my post and he commented, one of his war buddies from the Marines had committed suicide.
Oh my.
And so he kind of wasn't in the right place. I think last week, he was in the Marines and he found out, I don't know, it was a couple years ago or last year, but I think yesterday was the anniversary date of his commanding officer that committed suicide after they came back stateside because of PTSD and what he couldn't handle. So it's seeing all this death, and this kind of becomes important to us. This conversation, our there's three of us in police. We were the ones that went and got the bad people in the bad places and everything. It wasn't the SWAT team, it was us. Mike
yeah.
in uniform in his cruiser before shift committed suicide. He was a Marine. His brother actually every year does big like walk across America stuff, walking 200-300 miles, for a month or 2 months, in honor of him. And we worked out, we trained, we trained in a red man suit. You've done the red man training and stuff. You know what that's like. Man, that's bonding when you get a couple of your buddies and you just keep fighting all the time. He commits suicide in his cruiser. Our other buddy Danny get hurt, got hooked on medicine, couldn't get the oxy. He was done with police work, was actually teaching at Gateway College, teaching criminal justice classes, got hooked on heroin and died. Overdosed himself on heroin.
Yeah.
Do you think he done it intentionally, or do you think it was an accident? Fentanyl.
Well, Danny, he did some things. He made some mistakes. He said, like, he had some friends that lived in his army best buddy lived in that was like 10 years older than Danny and his wife. Hi, Tim Kaiser joining. Happy Thursday. And they kind of had an open relationship where everybody was all sleeping with everybody else.
They were swingers.
His buddy got his wife pregnant, and then all of a sudden his wife and dude was going to leave. When the baby came, DNA test came, and it wasn't Danny's, it was the other. From that point, his PTSD and stress went through the roof. So because of the struggles with that, not being able to see the baby, fighting over custody and issues with his other son, who was 7 years older than the baby. So by this time, baby's like 1-2 years old, and his son is 9 or 10 years old. And I think he did it on purpose. But either way, he didn't care. He knew. We arrested many people with heroin, with syringes of heroin. He's been with me. We've seen the teenagers. He was with me the night. I found 4 teenagers dead in a trailer on the floor, 17 years old, from heroin. And I got 4 dead kids in an empty trailer, and I got 4 families to figure out. And I had to go make 4 death notifications that night. Your child, along with these other 3, are deceased from heroin overdose. I was on a task force. We found so much heroin, and those that died from heroin in 3 months, they closed the task force down. They didn't want to report the numbers
Is that Boone?
because police. Yeah, that was Boone County Police. That was back in the 90s, 1997.
Pharma before they didn't want nobody to know it was addictive. It's not
Yeah.
addictive. Yeah, sure is.
So that and that's an outlet. The podcast isn't sponsored by anybody, and every now and then I'll stop and I'll say something. It's important. We all handle this different. Everybody knows the pound 988, but everybody knows that they have people in their life to talk to as well. And I've listened to a lot of people. I've helped some people. I talked to 5 guys that have posted on Facebook and groups a comment almost identical. I got a gun in one hand and a bottle in another, and the police are here. And I sent it on Messenger. Call me. Here's my number. And these dudes call me. One dude, 2 guys from Canada I still talk to. One guy called me the next day because he went to the hospital for evaluation. It was on a Sunday. He came back. He called me Monday afternoon about 4 o'clock. He said, I can't believe you did that. And I said, I'm an old timer in the game and I've seen things. And I don't have a degree in this, but I can listen really well and tell you a couple things so that you can live through tonight and tomorrow. And then after tomorrow, you figure out how to live to the next day and the next day into the weekend.
One
But
day at a time.
you're not alone in seeing and hearing this. You're not alone in feeling this. I've never been suicidal. I've just wanted to take everybody else, but not me.
That's kind of how I am. I don't know if I would consider the way I feel sometimes as suicidal. More or less just wanting to protect other people from me. And that would be the only reason. I know that I am the most dangerous person to me. I'm my biggest enemy. And I always have it.
Yeah.
Always. I've got ADHD pretty bad, and I don't like taking anything for it. So, I mean, I see a comment on here that's probably talking about me. Dude is on drugs. I've been on drugs my whole life because this is just how I am. Look, I got pulled over a couple of weeks ago and I got a ticket, right? The officer let me go, but they called my job in advance. It was like, you might want drug testing. My supervisor, I get there and he's like, I know you're high strung. I just wanted to come over here and make sure you wasn't crazy this morning. I was like, no, he just pissed me off because he didn't have any reason to be messing with me this morning. And I am. I'm wiry all over the place. My mom used to say, you need Ritalin. No, I don't.
Yeah.
That is too funny.
And the PTSD made it so much worse because now I'm like, got to occupy my mind. I've got to occupy my mind on something. And, I don't sleep much.
Our mind
I
is
trade
always
quickly now. So sometimes I hope that it sucks. I hope it's going down so I can go to sleep, but it's not. So I'll stay up all night because I'm emotionally attached to money because I grew up completely poor. Always. Didn't have nothing. Worked my ass off. Everything. Lost it more than once. I know that I hit the bottom, but I always bounce back. So it always ends up working out better. I've had to hit the reset button and lost everything except the clothes on my back more than once.
That's a shame. That's a shame.
Yeah. Well, she has been through a lot of pain. Just specialized treatment. Used to do the ketamine infusions for this nerve disease, and then they quit. And a part of this, we were told by a doctor, was this Matthew Perry deal, this whole scandal. The ketamine queen, all the stuff you see on the news. I hate Friends. I hate that TV show, and I hate everybody on it because they knew he had a problem, and nobody ever helped him. And they let it go, and they're like, oh, well, when he's skinny, he's doing this, and when he's heavier, he's doing that, between the drugs and alcohol. So they knew all this stuff, but they were so worried about making their money in their TV show and their future, they didn't help their buddy. Well, because of this, and he died with ketamine, and that ketamine is like all of a sudden in the FDA, they're like, oh, put a freeze on this. She doesn't have treatment, so she doesn't take any pain medicine. So we craft a lot more than before because we're trying to find something to distract our mind.
Does it
Just
help?
regular nerve medication no pain medicine, no opioids, nothing like that, nothing there to help her except me. She listens to me, and then I help her. I try and be her feet.
I have the good Lord.
Yeah, and she has the good Lord. She prays all the time.
I am very
Her faith is very important. As is mine. I grew up in the church, and that's how you survive. She's going to next week podcast. We're going to talk about pain management problems. Everybody's having problems with getting the things that they need, not somebody that's, hey, I just need the oxy, I want to go sell it, or I need this, that, going in and trying to demand it. But the people that go through serious issues. I talked to a guy, he can't be on here yet. He's in litigation, but he was a police officer. And during the SWAT call out, he was accidentally shot by another officer in the back, and he's paralyzed from the armpits down. And there's a lawsuit that's involved in, but we message, and
As there should
the
be.
stress, the PTSD that he goes through, and he's like, hey, I'm on a SWAT, everything's great, and the next thing, I wake up in the hospital and I'm paralyzed from the armpits down. And there's videos. He's been on the news. I saw a video the other day. It was played by the news where he had involuntary muscle spasm, and he's like in a wheelchair, stiff as a board. Like the
Stiff man
the
syndrome.
quadriplegic wheelchair is a real big one with the headrest, everything, and his body's stiff as a board and just shaking and tremor, and he can't control anything. And this was shortly after the shooting happened. But he'll be on here later. But we've talked about how hard it is for the right medical care for what you exactly need, and then what you don't need, leave it alone.
It's impossible now. They've made it where any kind of effective pain medication is off the shelf because people abuse it. People use it however they want to. And you know how long people have been taking like poppy and stuff like that? That we've had some what you would call a junkie now that were some of the greatest minds in history. And they didn't overdose and stuff like that because they knew what they were getting because it wasn't regulated. They make it at home themselves. So we have so much government overreach, and it's all for financial reasons. Like Afghanistan. There's a lot of there was some contractors over there riding around in poppy fields when all that war was going on. A lot of people don't know that there was some contractors over there that all they did was patrol the poppy fields with orders to shoot anything that made them poppies move. And what did we have business doing that for?
Opioid plants.
Yeah.
What's that?
We were there for was crime against humanity, civil human rights violations. We were there for human rights violations, so we just confiscate the poppy fields. So that makes sense.
Yeah. It makes sense. Just kind of like that whole Benghazi thing that never happened. It's just a great movie. Yeah, that happened.
Oh yeah. From Hillary.
Yeah, I'd still like to see some repercussions from that. Fingers crossed.
Not in our lifetime. They won't. They won't even release that kind of stuff to us. They we don't know half of what's going on. You were in the military. You already know.
Yeah, buried is buried.
Until you left out of there, was you? You left there was like putting on the tinfoil hats and stuff, right? Because I didn't believe anything. Like I didn't believe none of it until I seen some stuff and was like, aliens are real. Need a tinfoil hat.
And somebody told me something one time, and it was really, really interesting. They talked about the Harvard Project, and I might get banned off this. Meta, Facebook was developed by a Harvard graduate, right? The Harvard Project, way back when, produced the Unabomber over here. You remember that dude putting the bombs everywhere?
Mm-hmm.
Ted Kluczynski.
I have no idea.
Maybe that's a baseball player's name. You know who I'm talking about?
I do.
He was a victim of that Harvard Project experiment where they were drugging and using shock therapy on Harvard students whose parents were paying bazillion dollars for their kid to go to school to become a project.
Right.
I'll help you dissect an animal, but I'm not going to be in the project with electrodes in my head when I'm in college. It's not what college is about.
The
But
experiment we ran on, what was it, Guatemala, where we like gave them all gonorrhea or something like that, but the majority of the country and was just like, oh, we're sorry.
and we're sorry.
We just wanted to see how it worked out. That what was the reason for that? They just wanted to see how
Yeah.
people would progress through their life, through their generations.
What?
Yeah.
That's funny you
It's
say that.
sorry.
I had a spinal tap in December, and they came back and said there's no meningitis, syphilis, or gonorrhea. I was like, great. That's
What?
important.
That's
But now they think I'm leaking,
that's
but I
what
don't
they
have
were
any of those
studying.
diseases.
That's what they were studying. They're
Wow.
finding out now that having an infection like that and having it treated 30 years later can make you go paralyzed just overnight. You won't even feel like anything's wrong, and you'll just not be able to move anymore.
Wow. See some of the things we
They'll
learned.
do a lot of stuff with it more in the future when they can, seem like they didn't really do all that.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
I would have never thought we tested gonorrhea on people.
That was released with the FBI files a couple of years ago. So you can look that one up. You can Google it. We've
That's
an entire country just to see what happens.
yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy.
I think the substances that are easiest to get is alcohol and marijuana. And we're
Why is that?
legalizing. And in Kentucky now, you can get your medicinal permit, but you can't buy or own a firearm if you have that. And that's not what was agreed when I worked for the governor and they ran that election 3 years ago. The primary, our current governor, they all agreed, hey, we're going to make this, get the medical card up for that. Everything's fine. Everybody's on the same page, all the candidates. And then all of a sudden they slide this 2A thing in the middle of that. You can't have both, but which is unconstitutional, and it's already won
Absolutely.
and
So you
stuff.
lose your right to
So
bear arms if you have to have medicinal marijuana. You lose your right
it's
to bear arms.
it's
You can
crazy
get drunk
that
as
they
a
have
skunk
those.
and have anything you want. That's
I think looking back at life and PTSD, not doing any alcohol or anything like that, I think what I used in place of that was extreme weight training. And I think I really overdid it, which is how I ended up, exploding things down in my back and needing surgery. But I think that became my addiction. That was my go-to thing. Get mad, do push-ups, get mad, do squats, pick up. I did strongman and powerlifting so I could be stronger than any inmate. So I could pick them up, throw them around and smash them. Whatever was necessary, to affect the rest. Hawk smash. Yeah.
Hit him with the blue
you did all
lights.
that. If I
Yeah.
recall, you may or may
Yeah.
not have done all that.
Yeah, I did all that.
Yeah,
It was
that's
so bad
nice.
I'd come home and my kids would say, "Did you beat anybody up today?" I was like, as a matter of fact, I kind of had something happen. But I mean, these guys were terrible. They just kept doing it. They kept starting it.
Yeah, they did.
I mean, I'm really good. I would say, coming from a police background, I'm an expert in provoking somebody into a use of
No.
force situation and then finishing it.
I
But
see. No, I didn't say that. Well, we're on camera. I'm not gonna say that one. I'm gonna let that one go. I seen you
yeah.
look at somebody one day and say something. I was like, it's gonna be a crazy night tonight. You was about to go home, but we wasn't.
Oh my goodness.
It was I'd always go in and it kind of got to be a thing. And you find the littlest things to deal with stress. But people realize, for those that's never worked in a prison, that's never walked in a dorm by yourself with 64 inmates walking around being stupid, open, or, walked in chow halls like this or on the yard and, 4 officers and 120 people, and there's prisons in different states where there's 120 people in a big dorm or a pod and they're the only officer.
That's crazy.
For those that have never walked in by yourself and they say, My buddy Anthony Ganji and Russ Hamilton of Tier Talk, they're always making videos and talking about how to gain control. I learned really quick, and I said this last week to Connor. I said, I learned how to gain control. I walk in that door and I'd say, it's MF and hammer time. And if I didn't walk in the door and say that, then they knew something was really off or something had already happened or there's some kind of emergency. I'm coming in, I'm going to do the charts, in the tier. I'm checking on something, I'm delivering package or whatever, and then I'm leaving. But if I come in and I announce that, that means I'm looking for trouble. And that's how you get control of a dorm really fast.
Yeah.
Because when something you say that, and then 3 minutes later you're in the use of force all the time. Like you walk in that dorm, you find something and somebody goes wrong, and then bam, somebody's getting hit and blood's going off and you're dragging somebody out. They figure out he's coming to play. He's coming to fight. So really quick, that expression was my way of controlling and dictating the mood of that dorm. And it worked.
I would always just try to get whatever other officer was in there out of there, because it was a high possibility that they started some shit and that they weren't really going to do anything. So if I
Yeah,
could
there's a
get
lot of
them
guys
out,
that
now I can talk. Now I can be like, look, now you're dealing with me, and you know that I'm
Yeah.
not going to lie to you. If I can't get it, I'm not going to tell you I can. And he's out, he's gone. So
you get them officers that come in and their mouth like this,
yeah,
but then their hands are all like, here, let's mold some clay. I'm sorry I yelled at
I'm
you,
gonna
inmate.
Or give them
I'm
more
gonna sit up
food.
here in the booth while you go talk to him, though. You go talk to him. I'm gonna stay up here because I'm afraid of what I'll do if I go down there. Oh, okay. Yeah, well, I'll
Oh
go do
my
it
goodness, I can never.
What they'll do is make poo-poo. Like Jason Statham said in The Wrath. Did you make poo-poo?
Yeah.
then.
Man,
I
it
got in a
was
bad situation one time and turned around, and the guy that started it was out of the door. He'd already shut behind him, and I was like, well, this sucks.
Oh my goodness.
but they weigh and it's hard for people to
I just said,
understand
I kind
this.
of want to whoop his ass too, y'all. So y'all don't do nothing to me, because I kind of don't like that guy. I want to whoop his ass too.
Sometimes the way you gotta just to solve problem with violence, and some people don't
Yeah,
understand that all the time. It does take some violence, and some you got to make an example.
Your sunflower.
They're trying to do that. They're trying to kill us. They're trying to stab us. We had 5 people from Hayes had been stabbed.
yeah.
You remember Lieutenant Allen? He went down south to be a unit manager. He got down there. The guy was feigning hanging, had the sheet around here and hand behind the back, and came out. And Allen told me on the phone, just in a regular phone call, not an interview. But he said, I'm so glad I'm fat, because all I did was just wiggle around my fat. He said, that saved my life, being a fat guy. And he was big, he had some stuff to
I
protect
used to
him.
say, when me and McGill were working on Tier 2 together, I used to say to him that I wasn't worried about getting stabbed because nobody had stabbed him yet. And
I talked to McGill last week through Messenger, and the guy that stabbed him finally got sentenced 13 years added on to his current sentence. So he got 13 years. Yep,
That's
for
it?
attempted murder.
Changing somebody's entire life. And really,
That's it.
That was a plea bargain. Sounds like a prosecutor didn't want to go to trial.
it's ridiculous.
Yep, and he can't. He's not released to go to work. No disability, and we've told him, need to have an attorney. I've said this on tape.
Was kind of shafted by the. I'm afraid to say too much.
No, he was. I've already said it. I've said it. I've said it on about 5 videos. Hayes screwed him over, and he needs to sue Hayes for, number 1, because their lack of manpower. Number 2, the lack of training. Number 3, some other things that happened that shouldn't have happened that night. And it should go right down from the warden down to that shift lieutenant and shift sergeant for letting this stuff and letting this, doing lockdown with improper manpower. And, the supervisors at Hayes, when lockdown comes, where's the sergeant lieutenant? Sitting in the desk hiding.
Yeah.
They're not out there.
Oh, don't get me started.
I don't understand how they could, and I'm not trying to take up for anybody as far as that goes, but nobody wants to work in that environment. So they'll never have the manpower, and then you don't have the brass behind you to feel like you're part of a team and have, you know, it's all politics. It's all.
Whose butt you kiss?
I never could get into it. I never could fit in with it.
Oh, Steve couldn't either.
I was starting to be afraid I was going to get killed if I stayed. So,
Yeah,
one of the
you got
reasons
to
I
the
got
point,
out.
and I knew that I had the gang leaders tell me, the blood, the crib, the GD, and the Hispanic leader tell me there's a hit put on you, and I said, from who? And they said Ela has green lighted you, and I said, really? And I called him investigator that I had talked with, from being on tax squad. I knew the investigators going around prisons and searching, and he said, yeah, I know. I just got done interviewing all of them and finished today. And he said, I was going to contact you. I kind of had an idea you would call me. And then I spent 4 months, I told you this before, working undercover with him. They never did get Ela charged with that. They got some other people charged, some other problems. But Ela doing this, and I went in his office one day and I said, stop sending these kids because I'm going to beat them. I'm going to beat the tar out of them. These kids don't know how to fight. I do. I've done this for a living. And an hour and a half later, here comes a 6'4" dude trying to do something, getting smart with me, and got a shank in his hand. I popped him in the jaw and broke his jaw and knocked him out. And he ended up in intensive care. He had a weapon. I could have killed him legally, but I didn't. But I did put him in intensive care with more than a broken jaw. And then I went to Ela and the warden, and I told Sprayberry, I said, that bill's in your hands and it gets on Ela's hands. I said, I just talked to him an hour and a half ago, and then he sends somebody to me to try and stab me. I said, you're lucky I didn't kill him.
Wasn't that one with the broom?
No, this was Dick. He didn't have a broom. He had a shank.
Which one was it with the broom handle? And the warden says, no, there wasn't a weapon. And when he went back and looked at it again.
Yeah, that's the guy that I tased twice and about started a riot in the whole prison. We had this kid come in, and he was just turned 18. He was a young blood set, and he had at 17 years old jumped over the desk and beat the counselor in his juvenile facility, acting all tough, threatening to kill everybody. We come in, and it happened to be his 18th birthday, and he shipped to Hayes on his birthday. So being on cert, we had intake, and he come in, and the cert. Have you ever heard the cert speech, a real cert speech on intake? How we would used to give it and tell them not to worry about the warden. You worry about the cert team. Well, this kid started getting a little smart with me or whatever, and I grabbed him and I had some words, and I said, "You think you're going to do this?" I said, "You punking and bitching this." I said, "I'm telling you, I'm going to beat you with an inch of your life, and I'm going to drag you to the hospital. So can you stay alive for 35 miles? Because I walk slow." Well, then he did something else, and he got a little bit smart, and I pulled out my leg shackles out of my vest, and I might have explained something to them how the space in between the leg shackles is bigger than the circumference of somebody's neck.
Oh my God.
And I explained something to him, and he might have been kind of hanging up in the air. And then I said, "Oh, by the way, happy birthday, motherfucker."
What's your name?
Excuse my language. I'm sorry. I said, "This is the real world." Well, he was down in tears, and he threatened me for a month. When he got out, he was going to kill me. And I said, "I'm going to walk you down there, and then I'll be in a GP with you." Well, they moved him down on my day off. We go down. They got locked down for something stupid. He was in C1. And we had a brand new guy. And this inmate's roommate was diabetic. So being on lockdown, they went down and slid the oranges and the sandwich and the milk under the door.
Yeah.
Well, they had it blocked. So the rookie officer got talked into opening the door to give it to him. And here comes this inmate out. And he's out running around with his shirt off. Well, my lieutenant, he's like, well, he's a good lieutenant, but he said, "Hey, I'm really busy. Can you go down, take some people, go down, put him back in his cell?" So I go down there, and I take a sergeant down there that wouldn't do anything unless his life depended on it, which he still wouldn't. And I go in because I needed a supervisor witness. So now we got 2 sergeants and a couple officers. And here's the 2 inmates, and I tell them, "Get on the ground. I'm gonna tase you." Well, the diabetic kid, he gets on the ground in the opposite corner from his roommate. And he's like, "I don't want no smoke. I don't want no smoke, Sarge." And he's just laying there. And I was like, cuff him. Somebody cuff him, keep him over there. Well, this other inmate pulls out his broomstick. It's about a foot long, sharpened to a point on both ends. And he said, I told you, Sarge, I'm going to kill you. I said, okay. So I pulled my taser out and gave the warning. So I shot him in the chest. He falls on the ground, but he falls like this. So he still has this. I don't have a pencil in my hand. He still has this broom handle like this right in front of him by his hands. No, it's okay. I use this. And I said, when the tasing was done, the 5 seconds, I said, put it out, put it away from your body. He was like, no, F you, F you. I said, I'm going to tase you again. He didn't. I shot him in the back with a taser. And you would think that the freaking, the ocean sea parted because that's the storm, the crap storm I started. And I call on the radio. I tased whatever I need. Supervisor, here come Lieutenant Thomas. She's all screaming, why am I tasing?
Oh, I can't.
Why'd I tase him in the back? Here comes Ela. Why you tase him in the back? I said, he had a weapon. It don't matter if I tase him in the front, the back, or the side, or upside down. I said, I'll drive stun him every inch of his body if he don't let go of that weapon. Oh, and then we got inmates in there starting fires. I did learn something really important. That in a small confined room with a fire and you spray a fire extinguisher, it depletes the oxygen. But I wasn't the one that went in. It was Will that went in. And Will came out and he's like, I can't breathe in there. There's no air.
Will.
Yeah, he knows Will. Big, tall Will.
Yeah, I know who you're talking
We
about.
love Will.
Yeah.
I tased the guy in a wheelchair, and it didn't go over well either. But he rolled up on me. That's what I said on my statement. He rolled up on me, and
He rolled up on me.
in my defense, if he had grabbed a hold of me and got me on the ground, he would have probably worked me pretty bad. He's been in a wheelchair his whole life. His upper body was jacked.
Yeah.
I shot him in the chest.
Got some prison juice going on.
Americans with Disabilities Act says to treat them like everybody else. So that's what I used to justify why I did it. I don't know if that works or not, but that happened. That happened.
Yeah. Well, they didn't believe me, and the dorm camera didn't show it. And I said, look on my taser camera. And they went back and looked at the taser camera. And sure enough, when I tased him and he fell down and I'm giving him instructions before the second taser, you could see the broomstick in his hand under his chest and him refusing to bring it out. So I was cleared of all charges. I was like, see, I told you so. You guys you're stupid to really think I'm going to do something that I can't prove.
Ela was a joke.
I've been through this in the police on the outside and never got sued for a reason. I was an instructor. I know how to do this. I know how to talk. I know how to do things right legally. Yeah. They lost that argument. I won again.
Yeah, but Ela was horrible to you guys.
Statement word for word. Just read your statement word for word. Over and over. That's the answer to every question. Word for word.
But
that's just terrible.
But it's just, and for those that are listening, we were talking about substance, but as you know, it's not everybody just doesn't go to alcohol. There's a lot of substance. There's a lot of things that affect life and stress. And us talking about these things, and we can laugh about these things
now.
And an inmate, throwing feces in my face, and I break everything in his face and his ribs, and I cracked his ankle for throwing feces in my face and in my eye and in my mouth. Yeah, he deserved that. I could have killed him legally.
To escape there without that ever happening to me, but I've seen it happen to a couple of people.
Oh, it's happened to me a few times. The urine stuff they squirt out of the bottle. I just go and take off my shirt and vest, go jump in the shower, go jump in the inmate shower.
There's a comment now. There's gonna be a comment in a minute. Oh, if somebody did that to me, I would open that door. No, you wouldn't. You wouldn't.
Yeah, they're chickens.
Yeah, I'm not seeing. Yeah, something happened when I brought you on after instead of before. I'm not seeing comments in that coming through. So it's really slow on this end. But yeah, a lot of people say stuff. A lot of people say stuff. But I could tell you something. My hammer time made enough impact that when the one lieutenant, that bald lieutenant, made me go and pick a tray up, I said, these guys already been fighting. They've already done this. We've already had words. He can keep the tray to the next shift meal. That one tray won't make a difference. And he ordered me to do that. So when I opened the flap and it came out, and I was like, man, here comes Underwood, Sergeant Underwood and the CERT team. And, because he was still a CERT sergeant. When I promoted sergeant, I was down in tier. And I'm down in G and down in G2. Never forget this. Upstairs on the left, last cell. And this little scrawny little punk running his mouth and do this. And we'd had some words, me and some people in there, and I told them, I'll be happy to put 12 of you in a hospital today, kind of conversation. One of those days. And he did that like the end of the shift, like, my wife doesn't bother her if I come home a little late. If I have to, whoop an inmate's ass, she's happy with that. She believes in a death penalty too, by the way.
Yep.
So I told him, but this lieutenant, I was like, I'm gonna kill him. Here's Underwood. I said, you do the cert thing. I said, that dude, he gets beat. I said, I come in the morning. I said, I'm going to go down there. I said, I'm going to beat him almost to death. The warden moved him in the middle of the night. They made phone calls and did a warden swap at night before I came back the next shift because he knew I was going to go in that cell first thing in the morning at 6 o'clock after briefing with breakfast, and he was going to eat that tray piece at a time.
But who's going to stop it? Who's going to stop it?
That lieutenant ain't going to stop me.
Who's going to stop you?
Yeah.
You're coming in. It's your shift. They can't do anything until after you've already done something. So
I'm telling, pop that door.
I'm not getting in your way.
I'm gonna walk up there. When I get there, you pop that door, and I'm going in there and because he's going to be hanging. And something's going to happen. I need to make entry, and then he's not coming out.
Pop the door.
Pop that door. But this has been the best thing for me is to be able to talk. I've always talked with her, but to accept things, and then her and I talk with other people. Like you, like Connor last week. I've got some other people lined up to talk in the near future. But it really helps to just kind of talk. I've been away for 6 years from this. I've been to the range a couple times, just for my permits. Being a bodyguard for a governor candidate, you just follow them around and keep people from killing them, but really they don't want to kill them. They want to badmouth them on social media. That's more damaging than actually punching somebody in the head when you're a politician.
It is nowadays. Absolutely.
So I did a lot of intel. We'd go to a location. I was always checking the gangs, checking to make sure the neo-Nazis weren't doing anything.
Would you give me
Antifa, all that kind of stuff. Make sure there's no chatter. Every place we went, he did 9 or 10 speeches in 3 months. So I spent a lot of time doing intel, talking to police departments. Hey, we're coming in. I'm doing this. Me and a couple guys will be armed. I'll have a vest on. This is my role for this governor candidate.
Yeah, but he didn't get very many votes.
No, he didn't get no votes. But anyhow, it's on my resume.
No comment.
It was an experience. I organized security for an event that had Donald Trump Jr. there, Eric Trump, and I stood right next to him, and I shook their hand. And they're very nice. They're very nice young men. I said, one day I hope to meet your father.
Yeah.
I got a guest I want to get on here in a few weeks or next month, and he is the chapter president for Trump back at Trump 45, the boots on the ground. He was going through cancer 3 years ago. He survived cancer. He's a veteran. He is a man of God and man of faith, but he's got PTSD. He's got some issues and some stress. And Mark is a great guy, got great stuff. He was hanging out at the White House and hanging out with the Donald back in the day of Trump 45. He was hanging out with the Donald. Awesome. He's going to be a guest on the show. He lives right here.
You're a big supporter of Trump. You're a big supporter. Good. So I don't like politics. I hate politics, but he's not really a politician, so But I don't know. I don't vote because I don't want to be involved in all that. I don't know if I'm smart enough. I don't understand how a lot of it works, so I try not to involve myself in it. But I know that he's got a lot of policies that he tries to put in place that help everybody.
Yeah.
That don't just make gas prices go up and make everything more. The only president that has ever really affected my life was Obama when he done the whole making insurance non-competitive to where it's unaffordable now for people that work and stuff. So, that's the only president that ever affected me. And as I don't vote.
We don't like.
I guess Donald Trump's not really a politician. I couldn't have voted for Biden or whatever that was that ran against him this last time. I watched a couple of interviews of her slurring her words and stuff, and was like, yeah, well, if that's the next president, we're in trouble.
Yep.
I was really going for Trump because of crypto. You know, I started trading crypto a couple of years ago, which I would advise everybody to buy a little bit right now. So I was really going for him because I knew he would be a supporter of it.
We don't even know what it
Life-changing.
was.
Yeah. Well, I'll talk privately another day about that crypto. We don't know anything about that.
Me too.
I know a
We'll have
lot
to get
about
started
buying
with it.
eggs and chicken and tuna and putting gas in a car. That's what I know. No diapers, no
Me
little
too.
ones.
I got into it on accident. Really, it was all fate. That's how I got into it. It was purely by fate, just chance.
Just chance. Okay.
So
Hi, I really appreciate you being on tonight. This is a weekly thing, except for the 20th of February. That's the week of our anniversary. So I'm going to spend more than just an anniversary date committed to her over here. So I'm going to take a
me
week
too.
off of social media just because I can. But we're gonna keep this going every Thursday night at 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time.
I think we should
And
do it.
in the future, I don't know. It depends. We might be just
No,
chilling out.
I think we should do it.
We'll see. We'll see. No, we're not doing it that night. That's the argument I'm going to
Well,
keep.
keep me updated, man. And if you ever want me to have a conversation with you like this on here again, I'll be more than happy to.
Yeah,
I'm
we've
not
got a lot of topics.
ready to
We're going to talk about pain management, a few things about some diseases, trying to help people to get through that. She's in some groups. Her nerve disease is called the disease because it's so painful that they just give up from pain.
quality of life.
And so we got a lot of topics. Like I said, the death penalty. We're going to talk about. There's a couple topics I want to talk about MMA. Is the MMA world influencing? And I saw this again today. A boy that was like 9, 10 years old got his gi on, and he's doing all this MMA stuff. Beating everything to death. His body's going to be broke down by the age of 20. He's taking his future away from him, but mentally and emotionally, his dad. You hear him in the background. He's pushing him. These parents are pushing their kids into sports, and that's kind of a topic I want to talk about. Be a little bit careful and let them kids. Now we got a neighbor kid that's 10 years old, and this is a boy. He'd go out in the snow in shorts and no shirt, play in the snow. He's in the mud. He does everything Tom Sawyer would do, and doesn't give two hoots about electronics, cell phones, any of that. He's a typical boy that's not aging fast. I think,
Drew.
yeah, I think I lost you. But we got many topics. But Scott, we'll have you. There you go. You're back. A lot of things to talk about. I want to talk about MMA and law enforcement and the time and the place for that. And police with two guns, ankle gun backup. We didn't take people to the ground. You did all your fighting, stand up. If you got to the ground, you're in a really bad mess because they're going to take your gun away and kill you.
Really?
But as soon as I got to the prison, guess what? On my first day, I got an inmate hand on the wall, and I ended up on the ground. Got the shoulder pin like this, like the sleeper hold with one arm up. I got the shoulder pin, got knee strikes going. Dude's bleeding because I smacked his head on the wall. And I'm like, why am I fighting on the ground in the middle of a dorm on my first day in a prison when I said I wouldn't do it? And it just kept happening. I kept getting on the ground, and in prison, it's a different fight. So I want to talk about a lot of stuff like that.
There's a huge training problem when it comes to police. They don't have the training they need. That's why there's so many of them.
And killing people all the time like this.
Again, like I said, I've been arrested a few times. So I was on my way to jail, actually. And we were talking about me being a corrections officer. And he was like, I couldn't work in a place like that and not have my weapons. And I was like, you have everything out here with you that I have in there protecting me. That gun is not going to save you if somebody's really out to get you. You may think that like you can hide behind something like that, but everything you need is in your head. You have to be smart. You can survive any situation as long as you can outthink the other person. Police officers don't learn that. They learn to shoot between the chest, shoot center of chest, center mass. And that's not something that
Yeah.
should be.
Their use of force curriculum is presence and talking verbal commands, and then soft empty hand and hard empty hand, and then impact weapons, and then deadly force. You just go straight up that 6. It's a chart. It's just like this, like fingers. It's a chart, and you're programmed like robotically to go through this. And then there's all this de-escalation. Guess what? I de-escalated him like this and like this. I de-escalated the problem, and the other
And
63.
I agree with that kind of de-escalation, because you're not going to.
Yeah.
Chances are you're not going to kill someone that way. You know, that's not. But
No.
you will like this. Like they're dead. They're
Yeah.
dead, and it's not. It's such a split decision, and that affects the person who pulls the trigger a lot too. You know, if you ever taken someone's life, it'll change you too. You'll always wonder, like, you know, what you really did. You don't know the full extent of what you actually do until you actually do make that decision and do that. So
Yeah.
programming people to do this is not. It's not good. It's not
Yeah.
good.
Not healthy.
Because you
It
rob
is.
more than just one person of their life when you take somebody's life.
Yeah.
You lose yours. They have family that loses their life. Your kids lose you if you do it, because you're not the same no more. You'll never be the same,
Yeah.
ever. You
There's no
won't look
going
at
back.
yourself the same.
There's no going back.
No Zeus.
But yeah, I want to thank you again for being on. I won't keep you. We've been on. You give me an hour and a half tonight. Thank you, and we'll do this again.
Jesus,
We'll
that went
keep
by
you
fast, didn't
going.
it?
Yeah, and it's 9:30. Kids are playing the game, and
Who's in it with us?
ours. Well, our youngest is 18. He's not a kid, so but we've got pets and things, and just kind of people's attention span for videos doesn't last 90 minutes. They'll skip through and they'll spot whatever. Sometimes they'll listen as they're driving or on a trip, which is great. But it's been great talking to you and seeing you again. It's been a
Good to
long
see you too,
time,
man.
and I'll give you a list of topics, and you can let me know some
You
things.
can,
And
but like it's hard for me to stay on a topic.
yeah, that's okay.
I'm all over the place.
I am too.
It's really good to see you, and I'll message you. Okay.
All righty. Thanks,
See you,
brother.
brother.
See you. Good night.
Bye.
Good night.
Thanks
Good
everybody
night,
for
Miss Larson.
joining.
Miss Bees.
We'll see everybody
That's
next
right.
week, 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Thank you all for joining, for your comments, for being a part of this. I've got, hold on, Zeus. I got some dudes right here that are all ready to go jump in the yard. Have a good night.
Got some